Hi guys, welcome back to OCD Recovery's YouTube channel. Gemma here. I wanted to talk a little bit today about labour. So there's a lot of questions and a lot of anxieties around having children when you have OCD. So that can be, should I have children when I have OCD? Is it going to make my anxiety a lot worse? Is it going to be fair on the child to grow up with a parent with OCD? Will my child develop OCD? Which are all very valid questions and something that we speak to people about often. But one of the things the thing in particular that I want to talk about is the actual giving birth. Because that can be super anxiety inducing, understandably, and not even just for people with OCD. That's just something that can be very anxiety inducing for any woman. It's not just a case of, mental strength, but it's also physical strength. It's uncertainty. And of course, with OCD, we don't love uncertainty. So the massive uncertainty around how is that going to go? How's my body going to react to it? Because some people, I've got friends that have kind of gone into labour and it's a few hours, hardly any pain relief. The babies come out nice and easily, and that they're off home within the space of a few hours. For me, it was not easy. It was an extremely difficult labour. I was in active labour for, I think it's about 46 hours. Loads of different complications came up. So she had the cord wrapped around her neck. She was the wrong way round. So she was not as an upside down, but she was back to back, which meant every time I had a contraction, her spine would push down onto my back, which created a lot of pain. Obviously labour is painful anyway, but it's a particularly painful way of giving birth. There were just a lot of problems. So when I first went into labour, I was massively anxious, like hugely anxious. This isn't a happy story, by the way. Yes, I have the child and she's healthy, so that's the happy ending, I suppose. But I'm not about to say, oh, but I had a great labour and everything was fine, or I wasn't anxious. I was very, very anxious. I was extremely anxious the entire time. I ended up having to be sedated. So they gave me something called, I think it was Pethidine, which is like so it does help with pain relief, but it's also a sedation to try and slow your heart rate down. The problem is it actually slowed my contractions down as well. So after a period of time, I really wanted like a birthing pool. I was in the room with the birthing pool with it being filled up, but my contractions, I think after about 20, maybe even 30 hours at labour, they stopped. And they were like, well, we need to get them starting again, so we're going to have to put you on this drip. And what this is going to do is it's going to mean you have like one constant contraction. It's just going to be a consistent thing. And they were like, we absolutely do not think that you should carry on doing this without, because again, I was adamant that I wasn't going to have an epidural. I really didn't want an epidural. I didn't want to have to stay in hospital for too long. I didn't want to not have feeling in my legs. There was also the anxiety around, being paralyzed by it. So that was probably very much an OCD thing as well, is I didn't want pain relief because I was scared of the pain relief. So I was like, no, I'm going to do the entire thing naturally, which at the age of 16 and for that many hours of active labour was just completely unrealistic. Trying to do the whole thing naturally. I went for some time, but definitely not as much as I wanted to. But that's fine. And I think that's something that's really important here, is putting your birthing plan in the bin. Don't actually put it in the bin, have it, because they want to see it. They want to know what it is that you want to do, but just accept that you're probably not going to stick to that. That's not you know, I have to stick to this at all costs. Things change, you know, things happen. You could end up having a situation where, let's say you need an emergency cesarean, you're going to have some form of pain relief then, you're going to have an epidural then. So these things can happen, and you do have to kind of just go with what the doctor suggests in that moment. You're not in a rational state of mind anyway, being someone that's dealing with OCD, someone that's then in labour, so feeling more anxious than even usual. And then when you're in that much pain as well, there is, you know, there's no chance that you're in a state of mind where you're able to make decisions. So it is very much just lead with what the doctor suggests. And I would highly recommend that to any mum, but particularly mums with OCD, because it can be oh no, but I really want to do this, and I really want, and it just doesn't matter at that point. The only thing that matters is giving birth in the safest way possible. And I'm not saying the doctors can't mess it up and, you know, do something that they didn't need to do, but in that moment, there really is a release of control needed, and just allowing what happens to happen. Because when you're fighting with it, as we know from having anxiety, when you're fighting with something all the time, it just makes it so much harder. And if you start fighting with your body and go, no, I don't want to do this, even though this is the best option at this time, it's just going to make something more difficult. Now, going into labour, like the idea of the labour when you're pregnant can be super anxiety inducing as well. But again, it's just about allowing that to be there. Like, yes, we kind of want to look at the fears behind why you're so anxious about the labour. But in general, with things like that, that's going to be an anxiety inducing situation naturally. So I think the most important thing is just to allow your sensations to be there, allow the feelings that you're having around that to be there, without trying to manage things, you know, going into a million like prenatal classes that aren't necessary to try and get as many tips and tricks as you can to have the easiest labour possible, and, you know, hypnobirthing and things like that. Whilst there's nothing coherently wrong with that, for people with OCD, I don't think that's necessary, and I think that that's a little bit overkill. That's you trying to stop anything bad from happening, stop the pain, stop the anxiety that may come with it. So I think it really is about just releasing control in these situations. And, you know, yes, you can make your birthing plan, but it doesn't need to be strict. It doesn't need to be stuck to the letter, and it doesn't need to be that you go to a million classes and watch a million videos and do tons and tons of research. Like, your body is naturally going to be able to do what it needs to do. Yes, medical intervention might be required, and the doctors can lead you on that. But as a whole, we don't need this overkill of information before we go into this. People didn't used to have that. And yes, I know, like, more deaths during birth and things happened years ago. But even now, with the advancement of medicine, things can still happen. And the amount of effort you put into that is not going to change it if something happens. So yeah, just release control is the advice that I really have for that. If you've got any further questions on this at all, please just drop a comment below, and I'm happy to answer any of those. And if you've got any suggestions of anything else you'd like me to cover, please just pop a comment below with that too. And I hope you have a wonderful day.